You ready? Yes, sir. Let's call it. Pledge of allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want a roll call? Alderman Lockhart?
Here.
Alderman White?
Here.
Alderman Holt?
Here.
Alderman Bell? Absent. Alderman Wilson?
Here.
And Alderman Lewis? Here. Can I get a motion for approval of May 2nd, 2023 meeting minutes and May 8th, 2023 special meeting minutes?
So moved.
Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get approval for the agenda tonight? Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We want special items, none. Appointments to the boards and commissions, none. Scheduled public comments, just a reminder that any public comment need to be into the city clerk by Wednesday before the meeting. Public hearing, none. Introduction and first reading, Council Bill number 2023-019, an ordinance approving Middle Creek subdivision primarily plat, please. Staff report, please.
All right, this is to provide you with information regarding a preliminary plat known as Middle Creek subdivision. The property owner is Corey Myers Developments. The submitting firm is Engineering Surveys and Services. John Conway, city engineer, reviewed the preliminary plat. If you have any questions, the engineer is here from ES&S. So the zoning, the subject property is approximately 44.85 acres in size and is at the southwest corner of East Cloley Harmon Road and South Crump Lane. Zoning classification is R1, single family residential, R2, and CN. Originally, this development was approved in mid-2021 with the proposed 116 lots. Due to various reasons, including lack of available sewer capacity, the current plat has been reduced to 9 lots. The lots range in size from approximately 1.28 acres to 6.56 acres. The proposed subdivision preliminary plat consists of lots 1 through 7 for single family homes. Lot 8 is proposed for single family as well, currently zoned R2. Lot 9 is to remain CN neighborhood commercial. Access to lots 1, 3, 5, 6, and 9 will be from East Cloley Harmon Road. Access to lot 8 will be from South Crump. Lot 7 will be through an easement to Juster Lane, and lots 2 and 4 will be off Billy Joseph Drive. Being that these are larger estate type lots, sidewalks will be left to the buyers of each lot to install. Easements have been proposed to allow city utilities to be supplied to the lots. A hammerhead turnaround will be installed at the north end of Village Osap. However, this is not required at the end of Justin Lane due to the short section of street. There is also to be a small berm built on the south side of Lot 4 to control stormwater runoff to the existing homeowners to the south. Staff is in support of this preliminary plat. It is staff's belief that the developer has met the intended requirements set forth in the city code. This was also approved by Planning and Zoning Commission, provided that each lot be required to connect to city sewer. And it was approved on May 9th.
Any questions for staff?
So with the sidewalks, will each owner be required to put a sidewalk in, or is it left up to them to decide whether to put one in or not?
That is a great question.
And where?
Along Cloley Harmon Road to the north and coming down Crump Lane. One of the lots is commercial, so they're depending on the connection to the other lots would be the case. It is a requirement to install sidewalks on all lots.
Sure.
Depending on public works director, discretion.
Well, you wouldn't want gaps in it, obviously.
Correct. Or it also going to nowhere. A sidewalk that just comes down and then doesn't tie into another sidewalk for 20 years. It's kind of interesting. Those are the gray areas.
Was Corey at the, Myers, was he at the P and Z meeting?
He was not.
I'm just, I don't know, I mean, I hate to call it a concern, because it's kind of like a, maybe 6 of one, half dozen the other, but the one thing that sticks out to me is that, I know the issues with the sewer, and I don't know if the reason for the change is, you know, like they want to start developing these lots tomorrow, or what, you know, like if there's an urgency, but I don't know that that particular layout is something that we would want potentially in the future middle of town. I mean, I don't know, there's nowhere else inside the city limits where there's, well, except for one exception, where there's like 2 acre lots. Thinking in the future, like with MoDOT, since, you know, theoretically speaking, their next overpass is going to be north of Ashland. Crump Lane is the only road that runs completely through, you know, to the north of town. And that could potentially be the main thoroughfare with multiple acre lots on it, which is unusual.
May I speak to that?
Yeah,
Corey Berthold, Engineering Survey and Services. Essentially, the developer at first came forward with a multiple lot development and paid for in connection with the city, a sewer study for that area that revealed that there was not capacity and there was, I believe, many upgrades that needed to be made to the sewer system in order to be able to make. And I believe, I think it would have to pump to a different lift station, which is also over capacity. So many upgrades that would need to take place in order to develop that property with the lots originally proposed. Because of that, the developers come back with this fewer lots, fewer houses, obviously, because of the sewer system or lack thereof. So, you know, essentially, the developer, if you tell the developer he can't divide it this way, then you're basically telling the developer he can't develop the property because the sewer capacity is not there.
yeah. No, and I get that, because like, that's the thing, is that I'm not necessarily opposed to it, and I don't want to be involved in an issue where we tell them they can't do anything. But just going forward, they did a sewer study, and the current sewer system is not able to be utilized in the manner that they want. But again, that doesn't mean that in 5 years or 8 years, if this becomes, you know, more or less a fully developed area, that wouldn't be an option to connect to a newer sewer system. So I guess I just want to make sure that this is like 100% what they want to do, because they need to do it like right now, and it's not like wait and see when the infrastructure is in place and it actually makes sense.
I don't believe that's his intent. My understanding is he's looking to move forward with this development.
I have a question about the sidewalks. You said the sidewalks will be on Chloe Harmon? That's not a,
So the code just reads that any lot along road frontage has to have sidewalks.
so the houses will be facing?
Well, the lots face.
Yeah, so you've got 2 or 3 lots there that face the front of Chloe Harmon. And then right now the code is a little bit vague on the requirement for sidewalks, but I think it's been the city policy to require sidewalks along any streets. And I think the alternative to that would be to apply for a variance of that sidewalk in the Board of Adjustment.
Well, that's the thing, is like, I mean, I think it potentially needs sidewalks. Cause this is gonna be in town, you know what I mean, like this is on the edge of town right this second, but it won't continue to be on the edge of town. If, you know, MoDOT has their say, this is the kind of development that would probably be more preferable in the, you know, newly annexed property on the west side of town, where you're kind of starting to butt up against other multifamily, or, you know, houses with acres that aren't gonna turn into subdivisions anytime soon. So I mean, I think regardless of whatever's decided, I mean, it's gonna have to have sidewalks, because it's going to be in town at some point in time. Unless the city just stops growing, but I don't know that there's only two places it can go right now, right? North and east.
And the way it's currently proposed is to require the sidewalks when those lots are developed.
In the borough you talked about, that's gonna be on the backside of Caspian.
I'm sorry. Yes,
The borough.
yes, it was brought up in the initial preliminary plat, the first time around, that there was some concerns about the runoff from that field into the back lots of Caspian. So, yeah, we've taken that into account here and then provided a berm to redirect that water down to the ditch.
And is there any concern with connecting the lots to the sewer system like planning and zoning wants required? I mean, it couldn't handle the originally proposed amount of houses, but we can do 9.
In other words, I echo the councilwoman, so you deleted 107 lots, that's a lot. But you sure you can take the 9? This is the question.
We're confident that we can service those 9 residential lots, yes.
It wasn't necessarily that the city couldn't service the original, it's that it was going to cost $4 million to circumvent the lift stations that are at capacity.
We can circumvent, or we can service it without causing significant outlay of funds.
Question about the water supply, is it a loop type irrigation distribution system?
Yes, there's a loop that is shown on the preliminary plat that'll be installed from, apologize, I'm blanking on the street to the east. It really goes south to Justin, and there'll be a loop provided to connect those 2 streets.
The hammerhead turnaround,
Yes,
will that be, made of concrete, or will they pour gravel down for that?
it'll either be, it's required by city to be impervious surface, so it'll be either concrete or asphalt.
And that was one of my main concerns when this was discussed at planning and zoning. I think I brought it up at that time. You know, one of my pet peeves are these streets that just end, you know, all over town. You know, if there was any chance of ever connecting, for instance, Village OSAP or those others to another street or an extra exit from that general area, this would be the time to do it. I think at that last meeting, it was the expense of putting in the street was one of the determinants.
Obviously, if you're only doing 9 lots, it becomes a little bit cost prohibitive to do major street extensions for just those 9 lots. And the turnaround that is provided by this one does improve the current circumstance, because currently there's I think about 300 feet or 400 feet of street that currently dead ends without a turnaround, so is an issue currently.
Will it look more like a cul-de-sac type?
It's gonna be a hammerhead turnaround, so it'll be kind of like a T intersection. It'll meet fire code requirements to where if there was a fire truck that needed to get down there, they could turn around within that hammerhead.
Another question, on the stormwater issues, I mean, you're building a berm, how much of it, as far as the type of the contour of the land, is it gonna be a significant amount of money to make sure that stormwater doesn't become an issue in this particular subdivision, like it has been in others?
Not with only having 9 lots, you're not gonna have the denseness of the development there, where stormwater would become an issue. You've got, right now with the way that lays out, there's a drainage way that crosses the property from the south that is picking up a lot of water in that drainage way currently, the way it's designed, and flows through those back houses in the previous development. So what we're doing here will improve that by diverting some of that water that's coming from the north. I don't anticipate there to be any issues with any development on the new lots, just because you're dealing with, 5-acre lots as opposed to, half-acre lots that were in that other subdivision, crammed in against the drainage way.
Kyle, do you have any concerns about any of those things that I've raised?
Not necessarily. Obviously, the big ones were making sure water was accounted for as required by code, make sure sewer was accounted for as required by code. In this instance, these lots would have to, or I should say the developer should have to put in the necessary sewer for those lots to be connected to the public sewer system. Those are really the only big ones that were on my list.
Yeah, it's still concerned, I mean, some of the things that concern me is that the original plan, had a road, from Billy Joseph up to Chloe Harmon, because again, if this is in town, you would probably like to not just landlock all of that stuff. I mean, my inclination is to discuss it with Corey in more detail, but if you don't have a concern, I mean, by the time these 9 houses are gonna get built, I'm not gonna be around. You know what I mean? So like, if you don't have any concerns.
Well, I mean, it's really up to you guys.
Because I don't wanna stop, like I said, it's his property and I understand why he's made the change. I just don't know if from the city's standpoint that that's a desirable change to a piece of property that is, again, this isn't on the edge, it's on the edge of town right now, but I mean, it's basically bordered by, farmland with a house here and there. And if the people in the city that really have more, knowledge and experience with that kind of thing are fine with it, far be it for me to say, let's
I
wait.
mean, I won't necessarily say I'm fine with it or it's the best use, but it's in the future land use map as low density, and we don't have maximum lot size requirements, we have minimum lot size requirements, so if they're meeting the requirements for the zoning designation, that's what we're checking for, compliance with code. I mean, you as the board can have a different opinion and can certainly do what you want with it, but, we kind of talked about this a lot around this time last year with Corey and Larkin about trying to get sewer serviceability up there, and there are certainly options, but none of them are cheap to the developer to take on, so. I think at this point, Corey's looking to just try and get these lots sold. They have money invested in these lots already, so. It's really up to you guys.
Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve?
Exactly, that's something. Jared Bryan, 500 Trotter. I'm actually gonna voice a little bit on what Nathan's talking about, because I actually appreciate your concerns. You said something about low density. That's not what our future use map shows. It shows that it's
Right
going to,
here, it's low density.
I'm looking at it on my phone here too. It shows the exact same use that we're looking for Palomino.
Low density.
So ultimately, contiguous development is kind of what you're kind of talking about, Commissioner Wolfhard. And yes, I'm entirely with you. My big concern, obviously, if our sanitary doesn't make sense, but then that means our map doesn't make sense. We can't develop any of that going up north if we can't service it. So obviously, as a city, we need to take some time and figure out what a solution is so we can develop that direction, or we might as well take our future use map and throw it out the trash. It was a waste of time. Because if we can't service a simple lot, this is close to a school, this would be great. The big thing that we have right now, we've got not very many houses available for people to come into the schools, right? Low end, these are probably gonna be, I don't know, you probably talked to the developer, but probably your first time home buyer style homes. It's gonna be right there close to schools. I mean, I know our schools is struggling anyway, but our town is gonna grow. So we've gotta get this infrastructure stuff taken care of. Obviously, now our sanitary is an issue. But we know we wanna go north, so if we can't do it here, then how can we do it at any of those other developments? So, thank you.
Has he discussed the type of homes he's interested in putting on there? Would it be
I think,
first home?
I think with the current plan, it'd be larger estate lots, and
More of an estate lot type of thing, yeah. I was gonna say, if you're looking at up to 5 acre lot, that's,
To recoup the cost, you'd have to put a good size.
you'd have to have a pretty decent sized house there, yeah.
on the low part.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I was just looking at this thing to see if there's even a possibility of a connection of Billy Joe Sapp to Chloe Harmon still in any sort of manner. I mean, I'm obviously not an engineer, but I mean, even just looking at the map, it appears to be pretty much divided up based on the lay of the land, so to speak. And I don't even know if something like that would be possible.
In the original plat, what didn't that street go up to Chloe Harmon?
Yeah.
Yes, there was
Yeah.
multiple streets that, in the original development.
All right, can I get a motion to approve, deny, or table Council Bill number 2023-019, an ordinance approving Middle Creek subdivision permanent plat. Permanent plat. I'll say that word one day.
I'd like to make a motion to table pending a discussion, potentially a meeting with Corey Myers, but, I mean, not to exceed like a month. I mean, I don't intend, like I said, I don't intend to delay this in any way, shape, or form, because I understand the reasons why they changed it in the first place. But I would like to at least make sure that there's a understanding.
You do, I mean, this is the first reading, so you do have 2 weeks before the second reading.
Well, I mean, my thought is either table or to vote against it, and I don't really want to vote against it, personally. I mean, that's not, I don't want to speak for the board, but I'm just saying that's my thought personally, is that I would prefer to have, some sort of agreement or understanding in place, potentially moving forward, rather than me personally having to vote against it. Because again, I don't really want to tell him what he can do with this particular piece of property. I just don't know if this benefits the city in any way, shape, or form. Obviously, if I make that motion and you guys want to vote on it, you can all say no, and you can go ahead and vote on the first reading of it, but that's kind of my thoughts.
The meeting would consist of what? Just,
Well, I don't know, I mean, again, I know that, I mean, reading between the lines, I mean, Kyle had kind of mentioned that this is reasonable based on the use map, but maybe not the best use of the property. I mean, I think there's something to that. That's kind of my apprehension a little bit. Again, I don't want to deny him an opportunity to make money or get out from under a piece of property that he can't do what he was originally planning to do with it, but I don't know if it's in the best interest of the city to just say, this looks good.
And I would say, a perfectly appropriate political position to take. Tabling is fine, voting yes is fine, voting no is fine. Talking with the developer is fine. But if you're looking for an assurance about something in the future, as a legal matter, you know, the private discussion is not binding, and any one of you cannot speak for the city. The city speaks through resolutions and ordinances and contracts that are voted upon. I'm not saying you can't have your chat, I'm not saying it couldn't be very productive, but just understand that if you shake a hand and said, this is what's gonna happen in 3 years, that's absolutely no legal consequence. And so if what you're looking for is an enforceable type of guarantee, that's not gonna get it for you.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the case. I mean, I'm not necessarily looking for an assurance. I think it would be beneficial to the city to know whether this is, I really want to get out from under this, so here's the next best plan, because I need to sell this in 6 months, right? I mean, I don't know what his motivation is. I mean, if he was here, obviously I would just
I can't
ask.
tell you that's what's been expressed to me.
Do what, I'm sorry?
I can't tell you that's what's been expressed to me.
Is the cost
He's-
of it.
He's looking to move it.
And, you know, that's, we appreciate the candor of that answer. I'm sure that was part of their, planning and zoning hearings and discussions, but, you know, I don't want to discourage you from voicing your vote, you have that right, but I'm concerned about the, effectiveness of the chat, quite frankly.
Do you have any rough idea of, you know, expense-wise of retaining that street that would cut through? I know it would be reconfiguring a few of those lots, but wouldn't that also be to his advantage to have more street front to where he would be able to market those lots on each side a little bit better? Is this, you know, out of reason to, you know,
I mean, yeah,
not put all of the streets in that were original,
Yeah.
but.
but like, that's kind of what my questions are, and like I said, without Corey being here.
Feeder street that would benefit not only his subdivision, but allow an extra access to some of those others for emergency purposes and things like that, you know, as.
I guess that would be a question back to the city of, you know, how many lots would be acceptable to connect to the city sewer there? Because I think, based on the report, those lift stations are currently over capacity. 9 more lots isn't gonna have that big of effect there, but how many lots can you do?
Well, and I'm not saying to even increase the number of lots that much, just
Well,
with
that's,
a reconfiguration to allow that street, because you know, if I remember the map, it would cut through one of the lots right now to get up to Clelly Home.
because that's kind of the thing too, is like, I would ask
And
him
it's a
if he was
5 acre
here.
lot, you know, it's like.
I would ask him if he was here, you know, well, why 9? I mean, why this configuration? Is there no possible way to reconfigure it with a potential street through? Is, you know, those kinds of things. I mean, again, it's not really assurances so much as just like, how do we work together to make it something that's mutually beneficial?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the cost of the street.
Can I add something? I mean, would they be granting additional easement for future streets? I mean, there isn't really a lot of cost to that. It would be shrinking the lots, but putting the street in would as well.
It would have to be something I would discuss with.
Back to my original question.
Go to his motion.
Motion to table, is that what you want?
Yeah, I mean, I think a motion to table to at least have an additional discussion about the number of lots, a potential reconfiguration to add another street or whatever the case may be. Just because this is so drastically different than what we saw before.
Correct.
Which I completely understand, but also don't know if this is, you know, what we expected. So motion to table, but to put at least a short time frame on it, a month.
Table until the last meeting in June.
I mean, pending a discussion, if you have a meeting with Corey tomorrow, that's fine. I guess I'm just saying pending a meeting with him before a month.
I would second that motion.
Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Motion carries. Council Bill number 2023-023, an ordinance approving Southwind Tract Split Final Plat.
All right, this is to provide you with information regarding the parcel reconfiguration of Southwind subdivision. This replat of the 2 parcels, lot 1 and 2, are to become plat 7 and 8. The property owner of both parcels is currently Winscott Construction. LLC. The submitting firm is McClure Engineering, acting on behalf of Lombardo Homes of Columbia. The review was done by the city engineer, former city engineer, John Conway. And there are members in attendance here if you have any questions, the engineer and the representative from Lombardo. The subject parcels are known as Lot 1 and 2 of the current Southland subdivision. Lot 1 to become Phase 7 will be approximately 22.03 acres in size, and Lot 2 to become Phase 8 will be approximately 22.08 acres. This property sits between South Old Highway 63, known as Henry Clay, and South Highway 63, and it's just south of the current Southland subdivision. The zoning classification is R1. The purpose of the proposed reconfiguration of the two parcels is to align the parcels with the proposed phases 7 and 8. The current parcels are not configured. The current parcels are not configured for the developers. As you can see from the area map, which there's right here, the current parcels, as they sit, are not configured for the developer's future intended purpose. The proposed subdivision preliminary plat consists of 96 lots for single-family homes. The intention of the developer is to acquire Lot 1 for build-out, acquire Lot 2 at a later date. Staff is supportive of this preliminary plat. It is the staff's belief that the developer has met the intended requirements set forth in the city code, and this was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission on May 9th.
Any questions for staff? Or the developer?
Got a question. The sidewalk issue, was that something that was discussed at the P and Z meeting without necessarily an opinion?
Can we save that for the second item? We're on plat split right
Okay.
now. Let's stay discussion on that. We can talk sidewalks when we get to the preliminary plat.
Any questions? Concerns?
So this portion is just the split of
The split of the plat, yeah. Can I get a motion approving Council Bill number 2023-020 and ordinance approving the Southwind tract split? Final plat. That motion? Can I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Old?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Nay.
And Alderman Bogart?
Aye.
All right, moving on. Council Bill number 2023-021 and ordinance approving Southwind Plat 7 and 8 preliminary plats.
All right, this one's regarding the preliminary plat for the proposed phases 7 and 8 of the Southland subdivision. This previously discussed replat of the two parcels, Lot 1 and 2, are to become Plat 7 and 8. The property owner of both parcels is Winscott Construction LLC. McClure Engineering, the submitting firm, is acting on behalf of Lombardo Homes of Columbia. John Conway, former city engineer, reviewed this preliminary plat. This subject property is to become phases 7 and 8 of the current Southland subdivision. Phase 7, Lot 1, will be approximately 22.03 acres in size, consisting of 42 lots. And Phase 8, Lot 2, will be approximately 22.08 acres, consisting of 55 lots. This property sits between South Old Highway 63 and South Highway 63 and just south of the current Southland subdivision. The zoning classification is again R1. This preliminary plat is similar to the one approved prior for Winscott Construction. However, due to the city code, section 11.145, contract of sale, the preliminary plat of the subdivision cannot be sold unless the final plat is first approved. For this reason, this plat is being proposed for Lombardo Homes. The intent here is pending approval and also sale of the parcels of these preliminary plats. The previously approved plats for Winscott Construction would become null and void. So only after the purchase is something to make clear here. The proposed subdivision consists of 97 lots for single-family homes. There was discussion about requiring sidewalks along Henry Clay, but it was concluded that since it was not required when the preliminary plats were approved for Winscott construction, it shouldn't necessarily be required now, but there was a discussion of planning and zoning that maybe that should be revisited. There will be sidewalks along all property frontages similar to previous phases of Southland. The lots are labeled beginning with either 7 or 8 to denote which phase of the development the lots reside. It is the intention of ownership of Plat 8 to remain with Winscott Construction until Plat 7 reaches a certain level of occupation. Staff is supportive of this preliminary plat. It is the staff's belief that the developer has met the intended requirements set forth in the city code. The Planning and Zoning Commission, upon requiring a variance to not put sidewalks in along Henry Clay and Old Highway 63, or to put sidewalks in, this was approved conditionally on May 9th.
Now question.
Yeah, that's okay. Sidewalks, is it something that the developer themselves are maybe against the sidewalks along Henry Clay Boulevard, or is that just something that P&Z has kind of discussed amongst themselves, or?
Again, it goes back to the requirement of sidewalks to be along all road frontages to be provided. There was discussion about a possible, deposit being made for the sidewalks to be put in at a later date. If you're not aware, along Henry Clay, it's basically a ditch line. It's not really the best road frontage to put a sidewalk on. But P&Z thought the best option was to require variance, or for them to get a variance not to put in sidewalks, or just go ahead and put in sidewalks.
One of the other issues about that, these would basically be, if we were to require those sidewalks along Henry Clay, they would be sidewalks to nowhere, because from Peterson south, there are no sidewalks along there. So it would be at the back of each lot. It's not like there's no house frontage in this plan toward Henry Clay. So
But as
you
we
basically-
continue development out,
It's gonna eventually connect.
we're asking people to put sidewalks inside the city limits already, and we're struggling with places like on Liberty Lane where we had to get a grant to tie that in, to put in sidewalks that we wish had been put in before, so we recognize that that's an issue that we want to resolve, we want to have them do this, and at what point do you draw the line? Okay, yeah, the houses that are there existing don't have them, maybe we can apply for a grant and try to put those in at some point, but then if we don't require them going out further, then we've got more sidewalks that we wish we had that we don't. So I'm not in favor of approving it without sidewalks.
And you said that somebody had mentioned about putting a deposit down?
For the sidewalks to be put in at a future date, so the city would have the funds. But then there was a discussion, that wouldn't cover it at a later date, but if you're going to improve Henry Clay and put in curb and gutter, those sidewalks would be destroyed at that point anyway. So it's,
Do we know how, because it was because Winscott wasn't required when that was platted, however long ago, right? That was part of the reason. Do we know how long ago that was?
that was,
it's
I
been a
believe,
while.
2014.
Yeah, I say before this,
Yeah.
we're all.
Been a while.
It was the whole subdivision was
Except
platted.
Yeah.
Preliminary plat.
Sidewalks were required as of January 2015, just for reference.
So,
The other point I wanna make is it's really close to the primary school. Yes, if the sidewalks were required for this particular piece of land along Henry Clay, yes, there would be a gap. But I think along the lines of what Melissa was saying, in addition to the safety that sidewalks lend, it's very, very close to the primary school. And granted that there's no home frontage along Henry Clay, but how many kids will be, I don't know, it's hard,
This is why you guys are paid the big bucks.
So
When's those
there's
checks?
only
and the way it's configured too, you would almost have to have an easement to get even on some of those, lots in order to even get to that sidewalk. You know, unless they're
Who
traipsing
owns,
through someone's
Yeah.
whole, yard to get to that sidewalk. So,
who owns that panhandle that is behind those houses on Eagle Pass? They're not really on, like, they're not on the replat. You see what I'm saying? Like, see how when you look, pull this up, it looks like this red, it belongs to all this. See what I'm saying? But it's not on here, right? Cause it would
Right,
be
because
right there.
it's a previous phase.
But
So
what is,
this lot right here, that's part of, so this is a single family dwelling.
yeah, but this strip right here,
That belongs to Southwind, I think it's just a creek, there's a creek that runs through there. So it's part of the subdivision.
is there like absolutely property right here? It's
Yeah, that panhandle, sorry, Brian Fuller with McClure Engineering. We worked with Keith on the previous Southwind plats also. That area back there, we've talked with him, we are leaving access to a public road for it. It's intended that it's a common space, that'll be taken up by the homeowners association. We've had discussions about putting a park in back there or finding some use for it without clearing all of the trees. Part of the concern was there are lots there that back up to that area, and some homeowners or potential buyers were concerned of what was gonna happen back there. They didn't want to see the woods go away. And so we felt it was best to have that area become part of the common ground owned by the homeowners association to maintain and to preserve.
do you see a potential that a sidewalk could run through the western edge of that and still protect the integrity of the woods and such, that would connect all of the, what I'm talking, but all of these through common sidewalks that I'm assuming are on every road up through that panhandle and allow foot traffic towards the primary school without having to deal with first this property, but all of this road frontage, that the issue is that it could potentially be.
I think the problem you'll have with that is the only street that lot fronts on is near where Eagle Pass currently ends. So to get it connected further north or west, if it was ever connected to a future sidewalk, would require easements from third party.
Well, I guess, and maybe I can't tell, but isn't this road right here, doesn't this road right here connect to Eagle Pass?
Yes.
So that's what I was saying, is that if there's obviously gonna be a sidewalk on the edge of all of these, would it be possible to use, I don't know what this is too, I don't know how accurate
Right.
this is, but
Well-
like, all this space here that looks like it's part of this property,
Mm-hmm.
is that an option? Cause it seems to me like that would be a shorter run of sidewalk.
It's not something we've explored. There is sidewalk that's required along both sides of Eagle Pass, the road itself, that also goes north, and connects all the way up to Peterson Lane. So, the initial concern I would have would also be accessibility issues getting through that area where it's pretty steep back there. And it is through a governed Corps of Engineers waterway.
Oh, okay, well, that looks like that's in the back of those lots, I wasn't sure how precise that is.
Any other questions?
I don't, so, like Setter's Knoll, those commercial lots, are they gonna be held to the requirement of building sidewalks on the side of why? Did the
Going
doctors,
forward is being required as per code.
cause I know there was some concerns about just kind of the same deal, it's like pretty much the same drainage structure, they're just a ditch cut.
It
if I could speak just briefly about this to the board. In reviewing, in completing TAP grant applications, one of the highest scoring applications is increased connectivity, particularly in relation to schools. Like the one that we're discussing right now, it's very close proximity of the primary school. We've had some internal discussions about a future TAP application to extend sidewalk along the south side or down from Peterson Lane down to where it would connect. Excuse me, going the other direction.
Peterson to Red Tail.
Yes, Peterson to Red Tail, thank you. And it sounds a lot like with that sidewalk being on the backside of the lots, what we did with Liberty Landing North when Martin Builders was in the preliminary planning stages. We asked that they put sidewalks on the back of those lots along Liberty Lane for that future plan of having that pedestrian connectivity throughout town. You know, that being said, the area that was initially gonna be Ashland Commons, we don't know when that's gonna develop, but eventually that sidewalk will connect and provide that pedestrian connectivity all through. So it does feel kind of like putting the cart before the horse a lot of times when you're going sidewalks that seem to go to nowhere, but it gives us start-stop points for grant applications, and it makes it a lot more difficult to tell the next guy, you don't have to, when we hold everyone to that same standard.
There's only 2 houses between Peterson that will be connected, right?
There's 4 lots from Peterson south to this, 3 of which are already in city limits.
Have we discussed sidewalks with them?
Not at this point, but it's, you've got children that live in at least 2 of those houses. So.
Exactly, yeah. So.
You think that most of those lots have been platted, built on already. But yeah, I think your nearest sidewalk is near the school, about a mile away.
The nearest sidewalk would be at Peterson. Peterson just doesn't have a connection north to Red Tail. But as James was indicating, you know, these are the things that we're stacking up for future TAP grants to try and drag that south and get connectivity. Same to Sutter's Knoll. Ideally, we want to get sidewalks out that direction in the future.
How long are you looking at as far as this development, as far as start to finish? 5 years, 10 years, 20 years?
Well, I'm sure they'd love to be able to predict that, but, you know, the intention is for this first phase of the property to close in January. MARTA would then develop the subdivision and begin to sell lots and also build homes. We have seen an uptick again in some of the lot sales as interest rates have stabilized, but people aren't buying houses as quickly as they were this time 2 years ago, so it's really hard to predict that.
So what would they base the deposit on as far as the money for the sidewalks in the future?
That's something that we probably have to sit down with James and try and calculate out based on what he's been doing for like the TAP grant and whatnot.
Any other questions? No? All right, can I get a motion to approve, deny, or table Council Bill number 2023-021, an ordinance approving South Glen Plat 7 and 8 from preliminary plat?
I make a motion to table.
I'll second.
Alderman Volkart?
No.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Owen?
No.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis?
No.
Motion carried. So we'll move on. Well,
That fails.
That fails. So now we need a motion to approve.
Well, so since we don't have a motion on the floor anymore, so what specifically is this motion, if we were to approve it, what specifically does this include? I just want to make sure.
If the primary issue is the sidewalk on the frontage, that will not be included in approving this as it currently is presented.
So next we're just.
Isn't it mentioned that either that they're required to either do a variance, or is that not written in?
Well, so that's what I wanna be clear on.
So if you want them to pursue a variance or want to give them that option, this has to be denied. They can't just go apply for a variance. It hasn't been denied at any point yet. That's the triggering requirement for calling a hearing of the Board of Adjustment. So if you want them to not have to put that sidewalk in, it would be denied. If you want them to entertain putting down a deposit on that,
I want them to put the sidewalk in.
well, then make that motion.
We've got a,
So our intent is not build the sidewalk. We always wanted to build a sidewalk, we were just trying to give the city an option. If the road was gonna get improved, that we would escrow that money, so it could be used at a future time.
Correct.
So it's not that we don't want it, but we just wanna make sure the city's getting what they need for the sidewalk.
But that's what I just wanna be clear on, is like, if we approve this, is this, they have to build a sidewalk, or is this, they are putting money in escrow, or is it, that's their choice still?
Whatever you guys want.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion that we approve this with the sidewalk being either built or escrow money being put down for the sidewalk in the
You can have that addressed by the second reading and figure out what additional.
And my thought would be, to my prior comment, in the hopes of executing your desire, which I think makes sense, the ordinance, this plat needs to stipulate, in accordance with your city ordinance, which requires streets, which is not open to discussion, that's what the ordinance says, there is no gray area in your ordinance other than whether a street is an arterial or not, but you could put in there, they shall construct sidewalks contemporaneous with the development of these houses, or by X date deposit Y amount in escrow for future construction. And that would be my thought, that the ordinance should be that specific. A particular date, this amount is due. That's not required,
That has to
be sorted out.
be sorted out
Of
before we
course.
can make that motion.
So I second her motion.
Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
Alderman Holt?
Aye.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis.
Aye.
Motion carries, we will approve it with the sidewalks plus a deposit. Old business, moving on, there's none. New business, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Christina Lubert of Lubert Engineering and the city of engineering plan reviewer. Staff report, please.
As indicated in your report and as previously informed, John has taken a different position, so we find ourselves without anyone that can do plan review for the city. We have quite a few items potentially on the agenda for the June planning and zoning meeting, so we find ourselves in an immediate need. Christina was approached by the city prior to John's hiring about filling the role. She did express interest at that time, but the particulars of the role and the requirements that Tony was expecting were more than she could take on, since she has her own practice and is a practicing engineer. So with that, we're looking to engage her just on an hourly basis as needed for plan review as they come in. This allows us to continue to hold P&Z meetings over the next handful of months, keep up with our plan review requirements. From there, we can determine if we need more, if we need less, or if Christina is the right fit for, taking over for John. In the event that we want to do more or move beyond that, we would probably go out in RFP or RFQ, or figure out from a budget perspective if we could bring another position in-house on a part or full-time basis. But Christina has the necessary credentials to fulfill this obligation. We've met with her a number of times to kind of talk about some of the projects we have coming before us. She has worked in Ashland. She's been the engineer on a number of projects in town, so she's experienced with our process. We feel that she would be a good fit to fill this role for us.
Any questions for Kyle?
And the cost, if I remember right, so she will be on an hourly basis, so more than likely, we would actually be saving money.
Correct. So I mean, it's obviously
Unless
gonna
we just have a
depend
real,
on how many things are submitted over the next year and the complexity of those. But she estimates, 2 hours or less on most plan reviews. Obviously, something like Welch subdivision, Founder's Ridge, she has that one that she would start reviewing. That one likely will take more than 2 hours, but it would average out with some of the smaller ones that we've seen come across. But yes, this should be quite a bit of cost savings from the part-time rate that we were paying John.
Any questions?
Again, Derek Brown, Blackburn Truck. I just have a quick question. Nothing against Christina, I think that's a great idea if she can actually take over from John. My question is, didn't you guys just sign a contract with multiple engineers to review plans? And I know Christina does a lot of work in here, so she's not gonna be able to review her plans. Is it more of a solution to continue to use that contract where it's just like a round robin where it just goes to whichever engineer's up on the board versus getting a contract with another engineer directly that does a lot of work in town?
So we just updated the on-call engineering list, which is what he is referring to. My understanding is that John was specifically hired to go away from round robining through the on-call list for plan review services. With that, we would still have that on-call list available to us in the event that Christina obviously could not review her own plans, that we could draw from them as needed.
But my thought is if she's not a staff person, go back to the round robin.
Yeah. Any questions?
Question. Says here, as part of our contract, we expect to begin our services promptly after receiving your acceptance of this proposal and complete our work with all due diligence and in a timely manner. Would it be appropriate to ask for maybe a specific timeline? What, number of days?
She stipulated 2 days, but really it comes down to our current P&Z submittal schedule, which I'll let Darren kind of detail that as necessary, but we require these submitting engineer firms to have stuff to us well in advance so that we would have, upwards of a week to 2 weeks for Christina to actually review things if her schedule dictated that she needed more than 2 days to get to it.
Can I get a motion approving a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Christina Lubert of Lubert Engineering for the city engineer plan reviewer?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Alderman Owen?
Aye.
Alderman Plank?
Aye.
And Alderman Booker.
Aye.
Moving on, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to provide law enforcement service with Tom Bradley Bradley Marketing Incorporated for the Missouri Beer Festival. Staff report, please.
All right. Who didn't read the memo that I sent you? As it indicates, and as the mayor said, Tom Bradley approached us wanting us to do security out at the Beer Fest on May 20th. And you recently approved a fee schedule where we, the city, would charge any private person's entity $75 an hour for officer, to be present at their event. That helps us recoup some of the administrative costs, for processing payroll and insurance, taxes, stuff like that. So essentially what's before you is just a contract that Todd drafted that we would be entering into with Tom Bradley in this case, and one just like it for any future events.
The contract is very simple. There is a tension when you have off-duty officers there in uniform with city stuff and city guns, and they're there to provide security. And so the contract makes clear in that moment they are a independent contractor. The city is not waiving any of its defenses. I don't expect there to be a problem, but many of the provisions in the contract address the possibility that standing there on a private dime, that officer may need to use force, for example. It specifically says they can leave off-duty assignments in the event of an emergency, that sort of thing. I don't need to belabor the point, but that's why we drafted the contract, to address that tension, if you will.
Any questions? Comments, concerns?
Does anyone have an idea of how many people are expected to attend? I know it's probably hard to predict, but
I haven't heard a ticket purchase count, so I know his primary reason for wanting somebody there is anytime you got more than a handful of people and alcohol together, that generally a uniformed police officer present is a good deterrent. So,
And if something happens, you guys would get called out there anyway, so
Right.
might as well have them paying for it.
I would say that off-duty police work is essential. Everybody does it. Every department in the world does it. Every officer in the world does it. It's part of their livelihood
and
in so many departments.
And our department is no stranger to it. We've done it for all the years that I've been here, for the rodeo, gun shows, stuff like that. Just how we've done it may not have always been the most risk-free way of doing it. So this is trying to reel in some of that risk. Tom indicated 750 anticipated attendees.
I get a motion approving a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement to provide law enforcement service with Tom Bradley of Bradley Marketing Incorporated for the Missouri Beer Festival.
I'll make the motion.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Bocart?
Aye.
Alderman Plank? Aye. Alderman Old?
Aye.
And Alderman Wilson?
Aye.
And Alderman Lewis?
Aye.
Moving on, a resolution authorizing the appropriation of funds to certain accounts within the fiscal year 2024 budget and for authorization of purchase for a four-lift station pump.
Yes.
Another toy for you?
No. The sewer department is requesting a budget amendment for the purchase of 4 new lift station pumps, as well as the approval to purchase the pumps from the attached vendor quotes that are included in your packet. Per the Public Works Director, 4 sewer lift station pumps have failed and require maintenance. After reviewing the cost of repair versus replacement, purchasing the new pumps with warranties makes better financial sense. In the instance of these 4 particular pumps, repair costs exceed 50% of the replacement costs. Repairing the pumps comes with a 1-year warranty versus a 5-year warranty for replacing the pumps. The 4 lift stations include Peterson Lane, Liberty Landing, South, Celinda, and Eastside. New pumps will come with a 5-year warranty and will be replacing pumps that are already 5 to 7 years old. In the current fiscal year 24 budget, we approved $30,000 for pump replacement. This amount will need to be increased to $56,000 to allow authorization of purchase for 4 new replacement pumps, installation, and shipping. We are asking for a budget amendment to decrease line 5601, collection, repairs, and supplies, by $26,000, and increase line 5355, lift station maintenance, by $26,000, as well as an authorization of purchase for the 4 new replacement pumps, with the expense coming from 5355. Decreasing 5601 by $26,000, excuse me for a minute. Gentlemen, can I get finished? Decreasing 5601 by $26,000 will reduce the amount of funds available for sewer slip lining projects in fiscal year 24. Slip lining older mains is proactive maintenance, as where the need to replace lift station pumps is mission critical maintenance. The reduction to 5601 will not negatively impact the performance of the city's wastewater conveyance systems, and the quotes for replacement are attached in the packet. The fiscal impact is none. The overall sewer budget projections remain the same. Staff is requesting just the reallocation of budgeted and approved expenses. And our recommendation is that you approve this resolution, not only relocating $26,000 from 5601 to 5355, along with the authorization and purchase and replacement of the 4 lift station pumps from the attached quotes.
These those pumps from Norway or whatever? Isn't that what we got?
They're from all over, but a lot of Scandinavian pumps.
Scandinavian, that's right. I remember something about that last time. But these are these are here in St. Louis, right?
Yes, Van de Bonner, has 3 of those pumps, Flight, they're the sole source vendor for our region. And then the other one is a Gorman Rupp. And to be clear on this, because some more information came about, the Gorman Rupp is replacement of a partial of that pump for the 5228 plus rate. To replace the entire pump was gonna be closer to $10,000, but it also had a 6-month lead time. And we felt that it was not possible to wait 6 months to get this thing back up and running.
Any questions?
Yeah. On the quotes, are we reasonably sure that these are the best prices we can get on the market?
Unfortunately, they're really the only prices we can get on the market. And the reason for that is because these lift stations are sole source, which means they're only gonna work with one type of pump. That's how all of them do it. That's how they get you. But unfortunately, it's just the name of the game, and we run into it a lot within our wastewater division, several different aspects of, from collection with lift stations and treatment at the plant. A lot of sole source vendors.
Is it because they see cities coming? I mean, they see the money's gonna come, so they.
This is more a product of the fact that we have so many lift stations in town. It's not uncommon for a pump to fail and or need replacement, but it is uncommon to have this many.
A lot of these have piled up in the last couple of months of FY23 while we were in budget mode. The budget was already set, was going through the approval process. So we elected to stand by until we can get the new budget set and then take care of these issues that we had crop up at the end of the year.
When were these pumps installed?
So several of them were 5 to 7 years old. Unfortunately, it seems that here as of late, they get just beyond that warranty period, we start to see some issues. We are evaluating and looking at some different options to where we can try and look at a retrofit for some of our lift stations to where we can bring everything into one brand. Will allow for some resiliency and possible trading out of pumps that we, like if we have one on the shelf that we can put in place. But with that, there's a lot of specific details regarding your calculated horsepower requirements and your head pumping needs. There's a lot of stuff that goes into a pump, a lot more than I ever really thought the need for, but that's a problem.
How many additional pumps do we have out there that potentially could fail?
We have no fewer than 30 pumps across town. We have 15 lift stations, 2 pumps apiece.
Wow.
How old are those?
They vary. Some of them are over 20 years old.
I thought you were gonna say 10.
The one,
I did too. I was waiting for 10.
I would be tickled with 10.
Get 30.
We have 15 lift stations, 2
It's
pumps
just
apiece.
off on the lift station, there's wells and pumps on it.
Yep,
We got all sorts
there's
of pumps.
pumps within. It's unreal, the amount of pumps that we have within our wastewater system.
And then, the overall capacity stretched, right?
Yes,
With the,
that's what happens when you build on the top of a hill.
Does it also have something to do with the way the city has expanded so much so quickly? Because there's been kind of a knee-jerk reaction to build these extra, there hasn't been an overall overarching plan. And so they've been kind of put in as we need them, boom, 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 as opposed to a real methodical approach. I mean, I'm just.
Certainly, if you get down into the minutia of it, developers are required to build lift stations to service their developed areas. The best method and model would be to implement regionalization, which we attempted to do that, as we discussed earlier at Middle Creek. We looked at some regionalization. Regionalization is extremely expensive. It's an elimination of several lift stations to build one large one to service an entire quadrant. And it is just not in the cards right now with the growth that we're experiencing and the expansion needs that we have coming upon us. Long term, if we could ever get to where we have our expansion and capacity covered for decades, then we could turn our attention towards regionalization to try and eliminate some of these lift stations because the maintenance costs are pretty staggering.
Any more questions? No? Can I get a motion approving a resolution authorizing the appropriation of funds to certain accounts within the fiscal year 2024 budget and for the authorization of purchase of 4 lift station pumps?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Alderman Bocart? Travis.
Aye.
Moving on to reports. One thing I have experienced my first time with Salters picking up trash in my front, and they did a great job. All I did was call up, he's there like following Tuesday, it's awesome. You have to haul it anywhere, that's great. That's my report, thank you. City Administrator, please.
Just another additional update on our irrigation discussion from last meeting. I did meet with Schulte today that provides our meters, so more to follow on that. I also have Leslie looking into some of the background information that we need from Tyler Technologies, our accounting software, so she's working on that. We'll have more information as it becomes available. We've got some bid openings coming up, so the South Main Water Main project will be opening this Thursday. Perry Avenue is May 30th, so we'll be coming to you in the next couple of meetings with some action items, hopefully. On top of wastewater, we had put in for a couple of grants, most recently the Missouri Economic Development Authority grant. They did release the awards for that, and we were not selected for that particular grant. We're still waiting to hear back on the county ARPA grant application. Once we hear back from that one, we'll kind of reconvene from a staff perspective and put together some information and come back to the board in July or August timeframe, most likely with kind of a presentation and just some more updated information on wastewater needs and financing options, depending on how that last grant application goes. I did see one event that may be of interest to some of you, new construction education event on the 18th from 5:30 to 7 over on Gateway Archway. Izzy and Powers Construction and a few other folks are hosting an open house and kind of an educational session on how the new construction process works for anyone that might be interested. And I'd already kind of briefed DeReese on this, but July 4th is first Tuesday of July, so we'll need to determine whether or not we're going to have a meeting on that day. And that is all I have.
I won't be there.
City Attorney's report.
No report today.
Public Works Director's monthly report.
Mr. Mayor, the city administrator stole about 50% of my thunder, so I'll just hit a couple other highlights. TAP grant sidewalk project currently underway, preliminary engineering being completed by TWM. And, let's see, Village Osap Drive project is complete. Ball field remodel, project, the LWCF grant project, we are closing in on completion of that. The majority of that work has been finished. We will be, if the weather cooperates, doing some concrete and channel drain installation next week in the spectator area, installing those new bleachers once that concrete is cured, and then putting the final touches on that. In speaking with the park board, they have agreed to purchase a portable outfield fence that will really tie everything together, and the expenses for that, we anticipate recouping those through sponsorship sales of banners to hang along that fence. That would be up during the summer during league play times, and then be taken down around the time the school starts up each year and put away for the next year.
The fence or the banners?
Both the fence and the banners, and then resume it next year along the picking up whoever decided to participate in that sponsorship opportunity.
The fence, is it like a little 4-foot one?
Yes, sir. YMCA has agreed to purchase thud pads for the new ball field. We have those at the shop. I'm working with folks at the school district trying to get some logos painted on those to hang along the backstop and help protect that new chain link fence. And we've also asked the park board to consider naming the field during a dedication ceremony upon the completion of the project. I think that would draw in some of the interest and maybe take a little bit of community pride and ownership in the ball field. We want to try and take good care of it once we get it back in the shape that we want it to be in. Outside of that, I have nothing else.
The reason why I'm asking about the fence is because there's all the activities going on in the park with the kids during the evening and during the days. Just that I don't want someone jumping the fence, tearing it up, all that good stuff.
Certainly, and those points were brought up, and we're looking at working with the city administrator, we're looking at, and Chief Edwards, excuse me, some opportunities that with the new crosstown Wi-Fi bridge and some other technology to be able to implement some surveillance cameras within the area of the park, around the new restroom and the ball field. And the point that I made to the park board was that, you know, vandalism is always a concern, but we can't not make improvements in the park because of it. We just have to deal with it and try and curb it as best we can. It is an expensive project, but one that I think that will be very well received, particularly with the new co-ed softball league that's going on this year and other youth sporting leagues in the ball field.
We're having a co-ed league,
Yes, sir.
YMCA.
Yes, sir. I think that they're about booked up.
We have beers.
They were gonna come talk to the board about that, but I didn't see anyone here tonight, so.
That has to go to you guys, so they don't have to come here eventually if they want it.
They were told that. Yeah.
Speaking of bathrooms, did we ever decide what we're gonna do with the locks?
That's part of the research and the cameras and whatnot, so we sent some images over to get a quote on some locks.
Community development monthly report.
Mr. Mayor, since the Public Works Director and the City Administrator have taken most of the meeting tonight, I would just leave it as, do you have any questions about what's going on around town?
I have all the questions. Tell us what's going on.
I mean, I don't know about everything that's going on in town, but. So it has come up recently about gravel parking. And the prohibition of gravel parking and the unfairness of the rule of gravel parking. I expected someone to be here tonight to speak on their own behalf, but they didn't show up, so I guess some action will be taken.
Was it that guy out there?
No, that's Charles, he doesn't want to be.
My name's.
He doesn't want to be gravel, he's just being unfairness of gravel.
Well, so it's the belief of some that if someone has to pave their gravel lot that they put in wrongfully, that everyone, including those that are grandfathered in from previous, would have to pay
Build a
their.
new lot has to be impervious, that's the
Yeah, that
challenge
was-
that's being brought up.
Yeah.
So in this particular instance, someone built a gravel parking lot.
On Sunday too.
And I hate enforcing them. This is the route we have to go.
He likes it.
Actually, take him with you.
I like conversation instead, but negotiation, I even like negotiation. So we are, so that's really the only new news.
Maybe if they put pavers down, how about that?
That's an option, that was discussed, that's free. That's free,
That's free.
it's concrete material,
You can buy them from the guy up the road.
it's been suggested.
So.
Any other questions?
I don't think so, sir. Thank you very much. Moving on to Board of Aldermen. On the Vocart,
No report.
on the plank.
Yes. What is the current protocol for locking the bathroom, the current bathrooms, the workable bathrooms at the Ashland Community Park? And what times and what things like that?
So currently, the way that we had that set up is that, the on-duty officer does for, I'm not sure what, 10?
Well, when we made the agreement, it was when we were still
Yeah.
around the clock, but things have changed, so currently there's a scheduled call that pops up at 6:30 every evening, and then you guys unlock it during the week, and then on weekends, we unlock it at 8 AM and relock it at 6:30.
And again, we have a quote out to install digital ones that would lock and unlock
Yeah.
automatically. We
Go
can
to
adjust
timers.
those times.
That'd be good.
Will those be able for both bathrooms?
Yeah.
New and old?
Also probably gonna throw some motion lights on both of them to keep people from taking baseball bats to the doors.
Or water fountains. Anything else?
That's it.
Alderman O,
No report.
Alderman Wilson,
No.
and Alderman Lewis.
The only thing I was approached about was a question about overlays on Sappington. Is that on the list?
So with the South Main Street project, I believe we kept that in as an alternate for Sappington, Laurel, and Wilson. So unfortunately, it's gonna come down to numbers. We anticipate with that bid opening on Wednesday, we're utilizing, existing water funds and ARPA funds. Is that correct?
Yes, we're using a combination, so the South Main project, or the South Main Water Project is being funded by the Water Department. A little bit over 500,000 from the Water Department and 385 from the ARPA funds for a total of 885 altogether. That includes the replacement of the mains on Laurel and Sappington, and then replacement of water line, and then the paving of South Main Street to repair it completely from them tearing it all up for the water lines. But as James indicated, redoing Laurel and Sappington is all gonna come down to see what this bid is gonna be, because we can't spend more than what we've budgeted for it. And the priority is to make sure those water mains are done and make sure the line is replaced. And obviously Main Street is the bigger thoroughfare, and the biggest portion of the project that's gonna be tore up. So it requires to be repaired afterwards.
And their other comment was that, if it's not being overlaid, if they can be taken a look at to just fill some holes.
Certainly.
So-
And as we are able to get that bid out for the milling head for the skid loader, I anticipate that once this ball field project is complete, Public Works staff will transition to road repairs for the season. We're gonna start off doing some concrete repairs, concrete patches and curb repairs. And then once we acquire the milling head, we're gonna move into some asphalt pothole repairs and just spend a few days in each part of town taking care of the problem children.
Okay, that's all I got. Thanks, sir. Any questions or comments from general public for Aldermen? Or staff? None? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Or a second?
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I
I'm going home.